So it's no secret that I've been getting into Gunpla as of late, if you couldn't tell by my background, by the videos I've been uploading, by my shorts, and ever since I got my first kit back in July of last year, I've gone down the Gunpla rabbit hole deep. Both on the model kit side of things, watching painting tutorials, learning new techniques, what is the best kit, what type of kit should I get, but also on the anime side of things, all 5 million of its timelines, keeping up with ongoing characters and plot themes. And while consuming all this stuff, I've realized I've forgotten one thing. You guys. Obviously, when you dive headfirst into a hobby for months on end, you kind of take for granted some things that to an outsider might seem a little odd or strange. Like the idea of two-cutting your nubs, or what the difference between a mobile suit and a Gundam is. So today I'd like to take you guys through the kind of beginner's guide to Gunpla. I've had a lot of people interested in the hobby but don't know where to start or what it even is for that matter, so I'd like to kind of help solve that a little bit today. And if you like this type of content, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help the channel grow. And I just want to say I am not an authority on this at all. Like I said, I've only been doing this for a couple of months, but I've learned quite a bit. I think it's important to kind of share and grow as we grow. But it's also important to watch a lot of other creators in the space too. There's some amazing other channels. I'll put some here that have helped me learn and grow. So if you're interested, make sure to check them out as well. But without further ado, let's dive headfirst into the world of Gundam. So Gundam as a franchise is essentially a show about giant mechs fighting each other over the geopolitical state of Earth and space, and there's the evolution of humans and, just conflicts between the two different types of people, and not very complicated at all, right? Okay, well that was both oversimplifying and undersimplifying it, but let's get into it. Gundam actually began in 1979 with the titular anime series Mobile Suit Gundam, a show depicting an epic space opera between two rival factions wielding giant piloted mechs, or mobile suits. The show initially wasn't even that big of a success until the release of Gundam model kits, or Gunpla for short. They released the following year in 1980. Much like any other multimedia franchise, think Transformers, Pokemon, the release of the physical media helped spur the success of the anime, and everything else of the franchise itself, really. And with the introduction of Gunpla, Gundam is now a multi-billion-dollar franchise, billion with a B. In 2023 alone, the franchise brought in nearly $900 million. Surely if you have this super successful franchise that spans decades, it'll be easy to get into, right? Right? For me, I built my first Gunpla before I'd even ever watched an episode of the anime, but I know for a lot of people, it's kind of the opposite. They get into Gunpla because they like the anime and they want to build the mechs that they see in the show. But with so many different options to choose from, where do you start? I know I mentioned earlier there's a lot of different timelines in Gundam, but really, it looks a lot like this. Really, it's a lot more like a lot of highways that are kind of like right beside each other that kind of share the same laws. The main one of these roads being the Universal Century Timeline. This is the one that started it all and definitely has the most amount of shows and content to get through. The Universal Century Timeline, or UC for short, starts all the way back with the very first Gundam anime, that being Mobile Suit Gundam. But that timeline is still ongoing, and there are shows that were released just a few years ago. Okay, it's been more than a few years ago now, that are part of this timeline, like Thunderbolt and Unicorn and Narrative. But even with all these shows, it's really not that complex. They do a really nice job of each show having UC and then enter date. So it's really nice to kind of be able to follow along. You kind of get an idea of like, okay, this was Universal Century, bam, that's like 81. So it's like the 81st year of the Universal Century. And then you have another show, it's Universal Century 112 or something. So that one takes place after that one. So it's actually really good at helping you kind of keep track. For the most part though, the UC timeline isn't too complicated. Really, you're just following a few main characters and a few main plot threads kind of throughout the whole thing. And that being characters like Amuro Ray, Char Aznable, the Zeon Federation, the Earthspear Federation Force, with many of the shows delving into the idea of space colonies versus Earth and some sort of conflict in between that. That's kind of the basis, and from there they just kind of take different concepts of how to work with it. The only thing that can get kind of tricky is when they start talking about the evolution of humans and new types and space noids, and I swear it makes sense if you watch the show. But to get into the show, you really just have to go into the idea of Transformers battling it out. Except they don't transform, and there's a person inside piloting them. Okay, both of those statements are only partly true, but you don't have to worry about that for right now. I would actually recommend starting with the very first Gundam show. It holds up really well for the age, and there's a really good dub. I forget who it's done by, but I'll put it up here. And it holds up extremely well, and it flows really nicely into its sequel series, Zeta Gundam, which is one of my favorite mecha anime, period. And like I said earlier, as long as you just follow through on the timeline, you won't really get led astray too much, and you should have a good time. But if the Universal Century seems like too much for you, then I'd recommend something like The Witch from Mercury. As of recording, it's the latest Gundam series that released, and it's more so like a modern anime that features Gundam versus a Gundam anime, if that makes sense. It takes place in an academy. There's political intrigue going on a little bit about investments and yada yada, but the animation, so good. But if you want something that feels more like a Gundam anime, I'd recommend Gundam 00, which is probably right up there with Zeta for me as my favorite Gundam anime series, period. It's more so about the entire Earth being condensed down into 3 superpower regions that control giant space elevators and are constantly at war. And the Gundam pilots are actually terrorists in this one, and want to stop all war with more war. Again, it makes sense if you watch the show. But I'd say you could really start with any of the different Gundam anime and have a good time. There's a lot of different factors in each one of them that makes them special or unique, especially the suit designs, they're different. The only thing is, maybe don't start with Gundam Wing. Don't look at my Gundam Wing VHS tape back here. I don't like Gundam Wing. Maybe don't start with that one. But okay, you've watched your show, now you're ready to build your first Gunpla. Where do you start? Before you get your first kit, I would highly recommend picking up a pair of nippers. These are the only tool I would say is a necessity for starting the hobby. They help get your pieces out of the runners on your kits so you can actually build them, and they are a must. And that's a good point to bring up. You actually have to build each one of these yourself, kind of piece by piece, almost like a Lego. Each box does come with instructions, so don't worry, you have to read Japanese. Again, it's kind of like a Lego manual if you've ever built those. It's just showing pictures, piece by piece, where you put them in. But there are some other tools you can get that would be handy, but again, are not necessary. Something like this Mr. Cement stick, I think is a pretty good one to have for beginning. Again, not necessary. Basically, this just helps strengthen joints, or it's kind of like a glue stick almost, but specifically for Gunpla. It just helps kind of keep pieces together. It's fairly cheap, and I would recommend that one, but again, that one's not a necessity. The only other thing that I would say get, just because it's cheap, is one of these. This is a nail file, or not a nail filer, but like a nail, you know what I'm talking about. Basically, these are going to be used to help clean up your cuts and to kind of smooth out some of your rougher edges on some of the plastic when you cut them. Again, not necessarily at all, but both of those are relatively cheap. I think, you can get the nail thingy for just a couple bucks, and then the Mr. Cement stick I think I got for like $5. So not anything crazy at all. But now that you got your tools, you might be asking, well, what kit do I get? And realistically, there are 3 options you're going to find in most hobby stores when it comes to Gunpla, that being high grade, master grade, and real grade. High grades, I think, are the best starting point if you're getting into the hobby. They're the cheapest out of those 3 options, and if you have a suit design you really like from a show, 9 times out of 10, there's a high grade from it. That is the best part about this line, is that there's usually a kit for every suit in the anime for the most part. And also when it comes to high grades, they're not overly complex of a build, but they can get some really nice detail. Like I just finished this Gondola from Witch from Mercury, and it was a very quick build, literally 2 hours, I believe. And the Witch from Mercury kits are very good for the quality that you're gonna get. They're very stable. And if you can get one of those, I would recommend one of those just because they're very nice looking. High grades are usually about $20, give or take, so your wallet will be thankful, versus some of the others, like the master grades, that can range anywhere from $40 to $100 depending on the kit. But now let's talk about master grades. These are probably my favorite type of kits, specifically for the size. They are 1/100th scale, meaning they're 1/100th the size of the actual robot. They stand about 10-ish inches as well, so they're really nice on the shelf, have some really good shelf presence. Unfortunately, they've kind of been taking a backseat to other types of kits in the past few years. We've only gotten one confirmed for this year, I believe, and it's the Master Grade Vidar, which is going to be a good kit, hopefully, but just not seeing as much. With that being said, if you like the main protagonist suits from any of the Gundam series, Master Grade is probably going to be where you want to find them. I'd say the only issue perhaps with Master Grades is that the quality can vary quite a bit from the time of release. I built some kits from the early 2000s, and I've built some kits from just a couple of years ago. I love all of them, but you can really tell that they've kind of really advanced kind of building techniques and what goes into certain pieces to make them work and move. So whenever you're trying to get an older kit, just kind of be wary and maybe look up reviews, but I would still recommend any Master Grade post 2010, I think. Everything then, you'll get some really good quality. The biggest selling point for a Master Grade is actually what's called a inner frame, meaning that the build process is similar to what you would actually be doing if you were, building a robot. You kind of make the core, the inner frame skeleton, and then you kind of just piece the armor on top of it. It's a really interesting and different build versus a high grade. It really is a unique build, and honestly another reason why I love Master Grades so much. The third main type of gunplay you're going to see most places is real grade. This line was introduced back in 2010, and they aim to combine both aspects of the high grade and Master Grade into one kit, that being the scale of high grade kits and the inner frame of Master Grade kits. These can be a little difficult for your first kit. I've only built two. One of them is one of my favorite kits I have, and the other one, just watch my last video. There's a lot of small, intricate parts. Some of the build designs can be outdated if you get one of the older kits, like this RX-78-2. However, regardless, you're going to get a really nice looking kit whenever you're finished, because the amount of detail they're able to cram into such a smaller kit is really awesome. And there are, of course, other types of kits out there, like perfect grades, which are very, very expensive. There's super deformed kits, which are small, kind of chibi looking kits. And then there's no grade kits, which they don't do as much anymore. And those can vary drastically from build to build. But I'd like to think that no matter which kit you get into, it can't be the wrong one. Again, I've only been building for a few months, but if I hadn't, gotten my first one and just started going in, even with all the mess ups I had on my first kit, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am right now. And I still have a lot to learn, but it's really awesome because a lot of the people in this community are really willing to help kind of guide you along the way. And I'm still learning new techniques and ways to build every day. So really it is just kind of a journey, and you just kind of have to start it. Just like any other hobby though, it's really whatever you choose to do is the right decision to do. People will say, oh, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. But it's really whatever you feel most comfortable with, and what you find the most enjoyment with, because that's the whole point of this, is to enjoy building. I know this was all pretty surface level stuff, so if you'd like to see some more in-depth reviews or in-depth info about certain topics you're interested in, let me know down below what you'd like to see. I'd be happy to try to get it done. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.